Hey everyone, today's video is about a heartbreaking and still unfolding story from Nova Scotia, Canada. The disappearance of 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack. The case is being led by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, who've recently made a significant move in the investigation. As of May 17th, 2025, it's been over 2 weeks since they vanished from their home on Gairloch Road in rural Pictou County. And now, in a significant new development, ground and air search efforts have resumed. Let's walk through what's happening now, how we got here, and why this case continues to haunt everyone following it. A renewed search effort begins. Just yesterday morning, the RCMP confirmed that specialized search teams had returned to the area surrounding the Sullivan home. The Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, local ground crews, and police officers are focusing on specific areas near Gairloch Road, an important shift from the broad 5.5 square kilometer sweep that took place earlier this month. Officials haven't said what triggered the renewed activity, but they've emphasized this is a targeted effort based on updated assessments and data. After the RCMP scaled back operations on May 7th, due to dwindling leads, this move suggests fresh direction or reprioritization of previously searched zones. They've also asked members of the public to avoid the area during the operation, indicating a controlled and methodical approach. The renewed effort is being aided by advanced aerial technologies, including thermal imaging drones and infrared-equipped helicopters. These tools can detect subtle heat signatures even through dense foliage, but weather and terrain limitations can impact accuracy. RCMP have confirmed they are revisiting areas of high probability identified through lost person behavior modeling. What we know about the disappearance. Lilly and Jack were reported missing shortly after 10 a.m. on Friday, May 2nd. According to their stepfather, Daniel Martel, the children had stayed home from school that day due to illness. While he and the children's mother, Malahia Brooks Murray, were in the bedroom with their infant daughter, he believes Lilly and Jack slipped out the back sliding door. A door he has repeatedly said makes almost no sound. When the parents discovered the children were gone, they searched briefly around the property before calling 911. The area surrounding their home is remote, wooded, and known for poor cell reception and limited traffic. The initial search mobilized over 160 professionals and volunteers, including ground units, canine teams, drones, aerial surveillance, and even the RCMP's specialized underwater recovery team conducted a detailed 2-day operation on May 8th and 9th, but reported no discoveries. Despite those efforts, no conclusive physical evidence has been found. The Amber Alert debate. An Amber Alert was never issued. The RCMP instead used what's called a vulnerable missing person alert, which is more localized and does not go to all phones in the province. This decision has generated intense public scrutiny. Under Canadian Amber Alert protocol, 4 conditions must be met. 1. The child is under 18. 2. Police believe the child has been abducted. 3. There is descriptive information available about the child, abductor, or suspect vehicle. 4. The alert can be issued in a timely manner that could help recover the child. RCMP say the case didn't meet these criteria. Specifically, there was no evidence of abduction and no description of a suspect or vehicle. Critics argue that these policies are outdated and that a missing child should always trigger the most widespread public awareness possible. Search terrain and conditions. The geography around Gairloch Road includes thick woodland, deep ravines, boggy lowlands, and a river nearby. Some trails exist, but most of the area is difficult to traverse, even for adults. Visibility is poor due to tree coverage and seasonal undergrowth. Search teams dealt with weather ranging from overcast skies and light rain to temperatures dropping near freezing at night. Despite this, not a single confirmed footprint, scent trail, or discarded item, like a shoe or a piece of clothing, has been recovered. The RCMP's decision to suspend large-scale operations on May 7th was based on expert advice and the low probability of survival without shelter after several days in these conditions. That decision was controversial but is not unusual after exhaustive ground coverage yields no signs. Community and family response. Community members, especially those from nearby First Nations and small local towns, were quick to volunteer. Over 100 people helped in grid searches, information posting, and support for responders. Indigenous-led search groups also participated, bringing knowledge of the local terrain and cultural practices to the effort. The children's grandmother, Cindy Murray, spoke briefly to press, saying that the family was devastated but cooperating fully. She confirmed that police had asked them not to make public statements to preserve the integrity of the investigation. After the children vanished, Malahia left the area with her youngest child. Martel remained in the home, participating in interviews, providing digital access to police, and, notably, requesting to take a polygraph. He also voiced frustration with how few updates the family was receiving and called publicly for police to widen their scope to include surveillance review and out-of-province coordination. Martel's media presence and statements have been a focal point for both support and suspicion online. Deep dive, red flags, contradictions, and theories worth questioning. We're going to break this down like a true crime investigation. Not everything here is confirmed by police, but it's what people are seeing. What doesn't add up? What hasn't been explained? And what raises questions for anyone following this case closely? The timeline is tight, maybe too tight. Let's start with the timing. The 911 call was placed around shortly after 10 a.m. Martel says the kids were playing just moments before, possibly while he and Malahia were in the bedroom with their infant daughter. That gives us an incredibly small window of opportunity. It means the children either disappeared in under 10 minutes, left the home, crossed property lines, and moved far enough to completely evade search teams without a sound, or something very different happened behind closed doors. That time frame is tight. Uncomfortably tight. If this was a case of curious kids wandering off, it would have had to unfold fast and flawlessly. No hesitation, no backtracking, no items picked up or dropped along the way. But that kind of speed also creates space for something more calculated. Could someone have already been nearby, waiting behind the tree line, watching the routine? Could a car have pulled up, idled silently, and left the scene in the same narrow window, all before the parents noticed? It's a stretch, but it's not impossible. And if someone did act in that gap, that means they either knew the routine or got very, very lucky. In most cases, spontaneous abductions aren't that smooth. They're messy. They leave traces. But this window, 5, maybe 8 minutes, was clean. And the cleaner it looks, the more suspicious it starts to feel. The sliding door is a central mystery. Martel emphasizes that the sliding glass door doesn't make noise. That's a key detail in his version of events. A silent exit that went completely unnoticed. But it opens a bigger set of questions. Was the door unlocked? Was it left ajar? Did either child truly have the strength, height, or coordination to open it without help? And if they did open it, what happened next? Was anything moved or dragged across the threshold? Were there fingerprints on the glass, mud smears, a scuff on the frame? A toy or object caught in the track? We've never been told. If the kids exited that way, you'd expect a disturbance, however small. And yet, nothing. No prints on the deck. No crushed grass. No snagged pajamas. No overturned objects by the door. Even the dogs, trained to track scent across multiple terrain types, picked up nothing. That's not normal. That's not how kids move through the world. Kids drop things. Kids trip. Kids stop and start. They leave breadcrumbs. This disappearance didn't. And that's what makes the sliding door so crucial. Not because it's open or closed, but because it's the last known threshold between presence and complete absence. It's not just speculation. It's the eerie stillness left behind. A silence so clean it's almost manufactured. No shoes, no coats, no snacks. According to Martel, the kids weren't dressed to go out. There's no mention of jackets, food, or even toys missing. It was a chilly day. And overnight lows hit near freezing. If this was a curious toddler adventure, why didn't they gear up? Why leave without shoes? And why, after 5.5 square kilometers of searching, has not a single piece of clothing been found? No confirmed clothing or items have been recovered. A footprint was reportedly found during the early stages of the search, prompting a more focused effort in that area, though authorities have not verified who it belonged to. Children wander, yes, but they don't vanish into vapor. Could someone have been waiting? This is where abduction becomes hard to rule out. Not because there's evidence of it, but because the absence of evidence pushes us there. If someone was nearby, a friend, a local, someone watching, it wouldn't take much. A parked car on a rural road, a short walk to the house, an unlocked door, 10 minutes. That scenario would explain the total silence. But it raises another question. Who would know the children were home? Who knew the schedule? Who knew Malehaya and Martel would be in the other room? Random seems unlikely. Coincidence rarer still. That leaves familiarity. The tech trail that isn't there. We haven't heard anything about cell phone data, doorbell cams, smart devices, or nearby trail cams. If any neighbors had a driveway cam, wouldn't that footage be under review? If Martel handed over his phone, as he says he did police verify timestamps? Messaging activity? Movement tracking? There's been no mention of digital leads, no deleted messages, no sudden pings, no strange calls. And that's either a sign of a truly analog crime or of withheld information. The mother's sudden departure. Malaya left Lansdowne Station with the infant daughter just days after Lilly and Jack disappeared. According to RCMP, her exit wasn't suspicious. And to be clear, grief affects people in unpredictable ways. Shock, trauma, self-preservation, these are not unusual reactions for a mother who's just lost two of her children, potentially forever. But even still, it raises questions. Because in most missing child cases, families anchor themselves to the scene. They stay involved. They speak to reporters. They walk the search lines. They hold out hope on camera. That proximity becomes part of the urgency, part of the pressure on authorities and on the public to keep looking. So when a parent chooses distance, that absence becomes part of the story. Why did she leave? Was it a personal breakdown? A loss of trust in investigators? Was she advised to go? Or did she choose to step away? And how involved has she been since? We've heard almost nothing from Malehaya. An early interview, no confirmation of continued participation behind the scenes. Compare that to Martel, who's spoken openly, taken interviews, and publicly called out the RCMP's strategy. You don't have to assume the worst to find it odd, because if this were a stranger abduction, or even a tragic wandering, most mothers wouldn't leave the area until every stone had been turned, until every boot print was checked, until every creek in the woods was ruled out. Instead, she's vanished from the media narrative, just like her children. And while that isn't proof of anything, in the world of true crime, patterns of behavior speak louder than silence. How far could two kids go? Robert Koester's lost person behavior data, widely used in North American search and rescue, shows that most missing children under the age of 7 are found within 500 meters of where they disappeared. That's not far, that's just a few minutes' walk. That's a backyard, a tree line, a creek crossing. And that entire radius? It was searched. With thermal drones, with scent tracking dogs, with trained volunteers walking side by side, combing the underbrush. And still, no scent trail, no discarded clothing, no footprints, no signs they even crossed a fence line or climbed a ditch. Nothing. If these kids wandered off on their own, they would have had to move in a perfectly straight, unbroken, scent-free line, with no panic, no confusion, and no stops, while simultaneously avoiding every soft patch of ground, every snagging branch, every sign of passage. That's not likely. Which leaves the harder question. Some have questioned whether the children ever made it into the woods at all, especially given the lack of confirmed trace. However, authorities did expand their efforts after what appeared to be a single footprint was discovered early in the search. Because if they weren't, that means someone took them, or someone staged the scene. And if that's true, the lack of trace makes a terrible kind of sense. Who hasn't been named? Here's the other thing. And it's a big one. We haven't heard much, if anything, about people outside the immediate family. No neighbors interviewed. No extended relatives questioned publicly. No mention of family friends, visitors, delivery drivers, or tradespeople who might have had access to the home or property. We've also seen no reference to known local offenders, past custody battles, or even basic vetting of those in proximity to the Sullivan household. In a town this small, those names would be known. If there's no one suspicious on record, then that's one thing. But if there is, why hasn't it been addressed? If this were random, why here? Why this particular house, on this particular road, on a morning when both parents were momentarily out of view? And if it wasn't random, if it was targeted, then someone knows something. And someone's not talking. That silence? It's not just frustrating, it's strategic. Because there's always a cast of secondary characters in cases like this. The people who were close, but not too close. And the fact that not one name has surfaced publicly, not even as interviewed and ruled out, is a red flag all by itself. When no one else is mentioned, it means one of two things. Either the investigation is airtight and controlled, or it's narrow, directionless, and stalling in the fog. And when it comes to finding two missing kids, that distinction matters. The RCMP's early media control. From the start, RCMP urged the family to stay quiet. No interviews, no pressers, no emotion. This is standard, yes. But in this case, it created a vacuum. And that vacuum was filled by Reddit, by YouTube, by speculation. If this is a true no-foul play case, wouldn't transparency help? The more time that passes, the more the silence sounds like something being held back. This isn't about jumping to conclusions. It's about asking the questions that need to be asked. Because kids don't just disappear, and until we get answers, these questions won't stop. Martell, the public face, and the lightning rod. When a child goes missing, the spotlight almost always lands on the parents. Sometimes that's unfair. Sometimes it's necessary. In this case, the spotlight landed squarely on Daniel Martell. And unlike many, he didn't hide. He's done media interviews. He's addressed reporters. He's publicly questioned the RCMP's approach. He's even reportedly cooperated fully with RCMP, providing his devices and speaking publicly about his desire to help in any way. On the surface, that paints a picture of a father figure doing everything possible to find the children. But in the court of public opinion, visibility doesn't always equal credibility. Here's what we know. Martell stayed in the house after the disappearance. He handed over his phone and passwords. He voiced suspicion that the children were abducted. He called for the search to go wider, to check border crossings, airports, security footage. He has not been named a suspect. And yet, the longer the silence from RCMP continues, the more the public circles back to him. Why? Because he's the only one speaking. And that silence from others, particularly from the children's mother, Malahaya, who left the area, has made Martell the focal point by default. In the absence of answers, people start looking at tone, body language, word choice. They ask, why did he focus so quickly on abduction? Why no mention of other family members searching with him? Why is the timeline of events, from hearing the kids to calling 911, still so vague? This isn't about justice, it's about perception. And the RCMP's lack of clarification has only made it worse. Indigenous disappearances and the weight of history. Lilly and Jack Sullivan are members of the Sepeknekatik First Nation. That fact alone adds another layer to this case, not because it should, but because it always does. Across Canada, the disappearance of Indigenous children has followed a chilling pattern. Delays, dismissals, under-resourced investigations, lack of media attention, and families left screaming into the void. So when people from Sepeknekatik and beyond say, we've seen this before, they're not imagining things. In Lilly and Jack's case, the decision not to issue an Amber Alert, even with 2 young children missing in cold weather, felt like history repeating. This case carries the burden of history, and that burden can't be ignored. Did the search tech fail them? From the outside, it sounded comprehensive. Helicopters, drones, K-9 units, underwater recovery. On paper, that's the kind of response you want when 2 children go missing in rugged terrain. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We searched 5.5 square kilometers. Sounds impressive, until you ask how well that area was actually covered. Drones, thermal imaging, scent dogs, all powerful tools, but none are infallible. Terrain matters, wind matters, tree cover matters. If the kids were still, hidden, or underground, they could have been missed entirely. And if assumptions were made early about the exit point, about direction, about the children's intentions, then everything that followed may have been built on a faulty premise. What about the places we haven't heard about? In any disappearance case, the unsaid matters as much as the said. And in this one, there's been a notable absence of discussion around it. Abandoned cabins or trailers, root cellars and outbuildings, old vehicles or scrap piles, farm storage or hunting blinds. Have these places been searched? Has every shed on every neighbor's property been cleared? Has infrared scanning been redone with new assumptions? If someone is hiding something, or someone, it doesn't take much. A locked box, a garage, a pit. And if these areas weren't cleared early, then we may still be miles away from the truth. Thanks for watching. As always, we look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions in the comments below.